Welcome to another episode of How to ABL. Today is 10/15/2023, and it is shock season. Today is Hero Mutant Female Day. So I'm going to be using a Storm Tier 4 with a Rage. Her rotation is fairly simple in my opinion. You're going to 3 delay cancel until you see the big Storm Twister of lightning come down. Then you're going to do a 5-4, let your 4 play out. Then do 2-1 as a filler. Once that's done, your very next rotation, your 6 will be ready. So you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to cancel 4 into your 6 and let your 6 play out. Follow that with a 2-1. Rinse and repeat. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and show you that in action. I'm just going to point out the disclaimer. As always with any of these characters, you can play them however you want. There are different rotations. Experiment. Find what works best for you. This is the rotation I use that I score the most with. If you have a different rotation that works for you, more power to you. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and show you this in action, and then if you want to stick around later, I'll give you additional information if you want to know more about why I'm building the team I do and what alternate teams you might have as options for today. All right, so switching the Storm, I'm going to run up, and then I'm going to do a 3, wait for that lightning, 5-4. She's going to go in the air. As soon as that's done, we're going to do a 2-1. Boom, nice and easy. Then we're going to do a 3. We're going to do a 5, 4, 7, 6. 7 you can pretty much use whenever you want, whenever it's on cooldown. You can use that right away. You don't necessarily need to save that. As you can see, she cancels today. You don't necessarily need to use a striker for canceling, but you can use your 7 for canceling as well. As soon as he is targetable, I'm going to go right into my rotation with a 3, and then I'm going to do a 5, 4, 7, 6. That's going to do the cancel right there. And then I have a 2 and 1. And then right away into the 3, because it takes a minute for that lightning to drop. As you can see, the procs stay on fairly decently. I mean, you can use a judgment today if you want to. I find Rage works better on a whole when it comes to doing ABL. So on a whole for ABL, I do typically, let me make sure I get that orb. I do typically recommend that you try to rage up your characters. But like I said, if you have more judgments or you have a judgment you don't know who to use it on, she is an elemental character and judgment will work for her. Oh, cool, I got that orb. I'm about to say I probably should have picked that orb up before I did this attack here, but it's fine. We'll make it work. There you go, just rinse and repeat. Nice simple little rotation here. It takes a little while to get used to and to keep your procs on. I've heard a lot of people have trouble with it, and I've actually had trouble with it in the past. My procs might actually slip off, but I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with my overall score of what I get from her, so I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that you build Storm, because Storm is pretty much a glass cannon, and the day that she really shines on is today. There is another Mutant ABL day, but it's a Mutant day, which means you can use Cable. And honestly, I think Cable, even at Tier 3, was doing a little bit more than my Storm was doing. So, yeah. I would actually use Storm for both days just because she can cover both days. But if you really want to wail out, you might consider using Cable on the Mutant day. This is the female Mutant day, so you can't use Cable today. So even though he will outscore her on the other day, for me, with my Tier 3 character, my Tier 3 Cable, outdoing my Tier 4 Storm, she's the only option, really, for today, in my opinion. As far as meta goes. I mean, I'll talk about other options here after, but as far as meta goes, she definitely outscores the alternate options that I'll be giving you here. Alright. Here we go. It's final 23 seconds, final Oath and Blessing. Let's see how much more score we can rack up as he runs away like that, because that's fun. Alright. It's kind of an early proc, but we'll make it work. That's what I meant. Her procs tend to slip off, and it is hard to keep her procs going. And a lot of people didn't realize that you actually need to delay that 3. So 6.3 million. That's not a super impressive score for ABL. Might be for some of you, but on a whole, that's really one of the lower scores that I do for ABL. So let's talk about what's going on and why, and recommendations and alternate teams and all that. So 6,314,676. Always write down my scores. Always start with my cards. If you've been watching these videos for a while, you know that. I want you to know what my account looks like. So if you're saying I score more or less, you'll know why. View card effects. So here's my card effects. Pause it if you want to. The only thing I always point out in ABL is Pierce is important for ABL. Elemental damage also does better in ABL. So all around, Pierce is a fantastic option. So having 16% is really low. Once I get up to 25, I'll actually do a lot more. Unfortunately, with bad choices and bad luck with random, I have shitty cards. Here's Max Swords. Those are the effects I'm getting from Max Swords. Let's go on and look at Storm, and then we'll talk about team and alternate options. So as mentioned, she is tier 4. She has the Krakoan Summer, which is a seasonal uniform. So if you didn't get it, you have to wait for the season to come around. Let's see. Details. Here are her overall details. Got all the important stuff capped, in my opinion. Go over here to the Urus. As you can see, I only have one. Odin's Blessing. Only one. But everything is amplified. Everything is at least a 6-star Uru. So I could build her a lot better. For whatever reason, Thor tends to be the best striker for ABL. Maybe it's his clear, maybe it's his elemental with his clear. I have a tier 4 with a rage. Having a built striker does help your overall score, so I don't go with instinct matches for strikers. ABL, you use Thor. That's just how it is. You can experiment with different stuff. You know, experiment with different strikers. He ends up being an instinct match as well, so it was kind of like the best possible option, period. But even if it's not an instinct match, Thor for ABL, Black Widow for ABX. ISO 8. I've got a Power of the Angry Hulk. It's maxed out. As long as you're in an attack set, you're fine. She only has an Order +3, which is an instinct type match, and she has a normal CTP of Rage. Again, I could reforge this. You could do more. 0.9% is what it was rolled to. Uniform is a mythic uniform. So that's how my Storm's built. Let's talk about the team I'm using, why I'm using it, and alternate options for today. So I'm going to go here into Alliance Battle under Arena. And the leadership here, best leadership in my opinion, is going to be Polaris. So Polaris has Mutant allies increase all basic attack by 45%, which is not too bad. Remember, what's a Mutant ally? If you go to the details, which you can see it on a different page as well, you'll see ally says Mutant. If it doesn't say Mutant, not a Mutant. Talking about Scarlet Witch, talking about Quicksilver, mutants in the comics and cartoons. Not a mutant in the game because of some weird stuff with Fox ownership of the characters. They are listed as other. So Polaris does not boost them. So pay attention to which character is getting boosted. Storm is a mutant, and you can also see that from here because you see the mutant icon under basic info. If you do not see this, don't use Polaris. Polaris over here also has a passive, which damage dealt supervillains by 45%. So she's a double whammy here. She's a damage dealt character, and she has a leadership. Damage dealt is better than all attack. I've talked about this in videos before. I'll talk about it again. Damage dealt's the best. Also, Dazzler, probably the best. Once more, mutant allies. Storm gets this effect. Increases target's dodge rate by 70%. I'm sorry, ignore. I don't know why I keep saying increases. Ignore target's dodge rate by 70%. So if they try to dodge around, you can still hit them. Their dodge skill allows them to dodge damage. So if you ignore that, you hit them anyway, which is awesome. 70% is super high. Also increase basic damage dealt to boss types, which Searcher is a boss type. You can see it in the top left, boss info, right? It's 65%. It's ridiculously high. She is easily the best support for mutant characters in the game on all mutant teams. The Polaris Dazzler combo is insane. Now, Magneto has a self-leadership on his day, so you can use Polaris and Dazzler side by side, but there are other options because of that 45%. With Magneto, you use someone like Valkyrie with a 55% damage dealt because he has a self-lead. But in this case, Storm doesn't have a self-lead, so doing a Dazzler-Polaris combination is, in my opinion, the meta team for today. This is meta. I don't think there's a better option you're going to do here. Now, what other options you have in case you have some of these characters you don't have? So first and foremost, Shadowcat does do a 60% increase of all basic attacks. As we talked about, damage dealt is much better, and she doesn't have any of the other stuff. Always check uniform effects too on characters. Don't just assume. But under uniform effects, there's nothing there either. So there's 3 different ways that you can buff a character. Leadership, passive skills, and uniform effects. Shadowcat only gives a leadership, but mutant allies, again, 60% is better than nothing. If you don't have Polaris, you could use her. She is a viable option for today. Dazzler, if you don't have Dazzler, you can use Polaris. If you don't have Polaris, you can use Dazzler as a support. Honestly, I would not use Rogue. Rogue right now is not super powerful. She's not going to compete with this score. She's going to be way less. I will tell you right now, my tier 3 Krakoan Summer Storm does about on par as, if you look at Psylocke, her Captain Britain uniform. She was getting pretty close. So if you do not have a tier 4 Storm, Captain Britain with a 200 proc, mind proc, right? Mind damage here. 200 proc. That it scores very dangerously close to a tier 3 Storm with a Krakoan Summer for me, for my account. That is a viable secondary option. Aside from that, I don't know if anyone else here really shines. And those are probably your best leadership / support options for all the characters. You could use magic. I didn't really compare Magic to Captain Britain. Maybe I'll do that in a future video. I also don't have her transcended to get a really fair comparison. But Magic seemed like she was doing sort of pseudo okay, but all the rest of these characters are just not going to score anywhere near on par. So I would say Tier 4 Storm, Tier 3 Storm, Captain Britain, and then maybe Rogue or Magic as a possible consideration if you have nothing else to work with. Even here with X-23 with her uniform, I just don't think she scores on the same level as the rest. I've tried in the past, but it's been a while. So those are characters I would look at and possibly consider as alternatives. So you don't have a lot of options. That's why I still today would probably recommend building Storm, because until we get a Rogue or Rachel or someone with a uniform in a Tier 4 to compete, I just don't think it's not gonna matter. And Emma's a PvP character. Over here too with Domino, she's more of a PvP character, so I'm not seeing a lot out of them for ABL and PvE modes. So anyway, thank you for watching. As always, may your ABL scores be as high as possible, and I'll catch you in the next one.